I never imagined that the man I once loved would become my greatest enemy. When I married Dominic, I was young, hopeful, and ready to build a family. I had dreamed of a home filled with laughter, of mornings where coffee steamed between us while our son, Levi, chased sunlight through the curtains. For a while, it felt real. He was charming, attentive, and full of promises. But slowly, behind closed doors, Dominic's charm rotted into cruelty. It wasn't just the sharpness of his words. It was the way he used silence as a weapon, the way he locked me out of warmth. My voice became something small, my presence something burdensome. When Levi was born, I thought Dominic would change. I thought fatherhood would soften him, that maybe he'd finally look at something other than his pride. Instead, Levi became another pawn in his game of power. Dominic demanded respect from a child barely learning to tie his shoes, and when Levi trembled under his tone, Dominic would sneer, "You'll never grow strong if you keep clinging to your mother's skirts." What broke me most wasn't Dominic's treatment of me. It was how he tried to crush Levi's spirit. And then there was Eleanor. Dominic's mother never wanted me. From the first moment, she treated me like an intruder who had stolen her son. After Dominic's father died, her bitterness only sharpened. She criticized the way I dressed, the way I cooked, the way I breathed. She'd whisper cruel things to Levi when she thought I wasn't listening. "Your mother is weak. That's why your father yells. You'll see when you grow up, she'll drag you down too." For years, I tried to endure. I smiled at family dinners while my insides bled. I bit my tongue, thinking endurance was strength, thinking silence was sacrifice for my son's stability. But endurance has limits. One summer evening, after another argument where Dominic told me I was useless, I packed a small bag and left. Levi was only 8. His tiny fingers clutched mine, trembling, as we stepped into the unknown. We had no money, no certainty, just the raw courage of desperation. For a while, I thought separation would ease the torment. But I underestimated Dominic and Eleanor's hunger for control. They weren't done with me. It started with Apollo, Levi's golden retriever. That dog was more than a pet. He was Levi's companion, his comfort, the one soul who never judged him. But Eleanor demanded custody of the dog during a temporary court hearing. I still remember Levi's cries echoing down the courthouse hallway. "Mom, please." "Apollo's mine. Don't let them take him." They did. The image of Eleanor's triumphant smirk as she tugged Apollo's leash away is burned into my memory. Levi's tears soaked my blouse, and I hated myself for not being able to protect him. But Eleanor wasn't satisfied with just taking the dog. She and Dominic dragged me to court again and again, challenging custody of Levi himself. They painted me as unstable, unfit, and too emotional to raise a child. Dominic's lawyers accused me of alienating Levi from his father, twisting every moment of care into an attack. Levi was terrified of testifying. He was a child caught in the crossfire of adults' egos. I swore I would never make him choose between us, but Eleanor and Dominic had no such qualms. They wanted to break him. One night, Levi crept into my room, clutching his phone. His face was pale, his hands shaking. "Mom," he whispered, "look what Grandma sent me." On the screen was a text message from Eleanor. "If you tell the judge you want to live with your mother, you'll regret it. Remember, your father can make life very hard for her. Do the smart thing." The fury that boiled inside me that night could have burned the house down. My son was only a boy, yet they were trying to poison him, frighten him into silence. That was the moment I broke, but not in defeat. That was the moment I knew I had to fight, no matter how long, no matter how brutal. I would not let Levi grow up believing he had no power, no voice, no safe place. The night after Levi showed me Dominic's message, the one where he called his own son a whiny brat and wished for his real life back, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, with the glow of the lamp spilling across a growing pile of papers. My hands moved mechanically, but my heart beat like a drum. each thud reminding me that I had finally crossed the invisible line between surviving and fighting back. I printed screenshots of every cruel message. I gathered Eleanor's emails, each laced with poison disguised as concern. I dug through folders of Levi's school reports, highlighting absences that matched Dominic's broken promises. For the first time in months, I wasn't crying into my pillow. I wasn't afraid of the silence in the house. I was building an armor made of paper and ink, of truths that could not be twisted by charm or smirks. It felt strange, almost surgical, to transform years of emotional bruises into neat files. I labeled everything carefully: messages, neglect, Eleanor's interference, financial records. Every binder clip was a wound stitched closed. Every folder was a scar cataloged for the court. But the hardest part wasn't the documents. It was Levi. He had seen too much already. His father's rejection etched across a glowing screen. His grandmother's attempts to undermine me. The ache of Apollo's absence. I watched him sit at the coffee table that week, sketching superheroes with heavy lines. His drawings had changed. The capes were darker, the villains taller, and the heroes always looked tired. I wanted to shield him from all of it. Yet Denise, my lawyer, was clear. Levi's voice was the strongest piece of evidence we had. Not because a child should ever carry the weight of a courtroom, but because the truth spoken by the innocent cuts through lies sharper than any blade. The thought of putting him in that position made me sick. But the thought of Dominic walking away with half of Levi's childhood was worse. So, I turned my fear into strategy. I began keeping a daily journal, not for myself, but for Levi's story. Every night after he went to bed, I wrote what he said, what he felt, what he did. The day he asked if his dad picked Apollo because the dog was better. The night he flinched when my phone buzzed, expecting more bad news. The morning he refused pancakes because they reminded him of weekends with his father. Each page became a record of how Dominic's absence and cruelty carved holes in Levi's world. Some nights, my pen shook with rage. Other nights, I had to stop writing because the tears blurred the ink. But still, I kept going. I wasn't just his mother anymore. I was his witness. Eleanor, of course, didn't stop. She lurked at school pickup, flashing that polished smile that fooled teachers but never fooled me. Once, she slipped a note into Levi's backpack, written in her neat cursive. Don't believe everything your mother tells you. Your father loves you, even if she tries to hide it. When Levi handed me that note, his small fingers trembling, I felt fury, so pure I could barely breathe. But instead of tearing it to shreds, I pressed it flat, scanned it, and slid it into the folder labeled Manipulation. Every attempt she made to fracture us only tightened my resolve. If she wanted war, she'd get it, but on my terms, and with proof she couldn't wriggle free from. By April, my evidence box was so full I bought a new binder. Denise was impressed. This isn't just documentation, she said. It's a map of neglect. It shows a pattern the court can't ignore. Her words steadied me, but it was Levi who gave me courage. One evening, as he colored quietly beside me, he looked up and asked, "Mom, are we going to win?" His eyes were too big for a boy who should have been worried about soccer games and cartoons, not custody hearings. I swallowed hard and nodded. Yes, sweetheart, because we have the truth. The truth that became our rallying cry. When Denise suggested Levi could speak in court, I wrestled with the idea. He was only 9. Could I really ask him to stand in front of a judge and share the deepest wound his father had left? But then I remembered his drawings, the ones where the heroes, though tired, never gave up. Levi already knew how to tell the truth. He had been doing it in pencil and paper for months. Maybe it was time the world heard it, too. So we practiced. Not a script, not words stuffed into his mouth, but his own feelings said out loud. Over grilled cheese and chocolate milk, he told me what he might say, how his dad never called, how he felt smaller every time Dominic forgot about him, how he only felt safe when he was home with me. I didn't correct him. I didn't coach. I just listened, reminding him to breathe when his voice caught. And each time, I watched his little shoulders square a bit more, as though he was slowly stepping into the cape he had drawn for himself. In those weeks, I realized something. Pain doesn't just sit inside you forever. If you're brave enough, you can turn it into a weapon, not for vengeance, but for protection. Every insult, every manipulation, every betrayal Dominic tried to bury us with became a stone I built into a wall around Levi. A wall that no charm, no smirk, and no shadow of the past could break down. By the time May rolled around, the day circled on our calendar in Levi's shaky handwriting. Our evidence wasn't just paper. It was living proof. My son's courage, my refusal to be silenced, our bond stronger than anything Dominic or Eleanor could weaponize. I wasn't walking into that courtroom alone. I was walking in with Levi's truth, my mountain of evidence, and the quiet, steady fire that comes only when you've survived the worst and finally decide you won't survive quietly anymore. The day Levi was called to testify, I thought my heart would stop. He wore his best shirt, his hair neatly combed, his small shoulders squared with a bravery far beyond his years. I held his hand until the bailiff told me to let go. On the stand, his voice wavered at first. He glanced nervously at his father and grandmother. But then, with a courage that silenced the entire courtroom, Levi said, "I want to live with my mom. She makes me feel safe. Dad and Grandma, they make me scared." Gasps rippled through the room. Eleanor's face twisted with rage. Dominic's jaw tightened. But Levi didn't falter. He told the judge about the messages, about the pressure, about the fear. When he stepped down, he ran into my arms, and I whispered into his hair, "You were so brave. I'm proud of you." That night, for the first time in years, I allowed myself to hope. The judge granted me full custody, with Dominic allowed only supervised visitation. The gavel strike felt like thunder in my chest, an ending and a beginning. Dominic didn't take it well. He raged in the hallway, shouting that I'd poisoned his son against him. Eleanor shrieked about injustice, about conspiracies. But I didn't care. All I saw was Levi's relieved smile, the way he clung to me like a sailor finally safe on shore. After that, Dominic's presence dwindled. He visited sporadically at first, each time under the watchful eye of a social worker. But his pride couldn't stomach the humiliation. Slowly, he disappeared from Levi's life. Months later, I received a letter. In it, Dominic wrote of regret, of anger at himself, of love he never knew how to express. He said he'd leave us alone, that he hoped one day Levi would forgive him. I didn't know whether to weep or burn the letter. In the end, I tucked it away, unsure if Levi would ever want to read it. With Dominic and Eleanor out of the picture, life slowly began to breathe again. The house was quieter, but in that silence grew peace. Levi slept without nightmares. He laughed more. He painted again. One evening, he showed me a canvas he'd been working on. It was a picture of us, me holding his hand, both of us standing tall, with Apollo drawn as a golden blur running beside us. "I know Apollo's not here," Levi said softly, "but in my heart, he always is." I hugged him tightly, tears soaking my cheeks. He wasn't broken. He wasn't lost. He was healing, just like me. Looking back now, I realize strength isn't silence. Strength isn't endurance. True strength is choosing to stand, to fight, to raise your voice even when it trembles. I once believed Eleanor's words, that I was weak, unworthy, incapable of protecting my child. But the truth is, I was stronger than all of them. Stronger because I loved without condition. Stronger because I refused to surrender. Levi and I still carry scars. But scars are proof of survival. They are the map of where we've been and the reminder of how far we've come. And when people ask me if I regret it all, the battles, the tears, the endless nights of fear, I answer with the same truth every time. No. Because every fight, every wound, every moment of pain led to this. A life where my son knows he is loved, safe, and free.